Thank you, Marian. Well, I think already what I've read and how I've read it and what I said last night, the example that this Torah portion teaches us is very, very clear. Korach wanted power for himself, obviously not the people. That's why he said to Moses, and I read it, you've gone too far. God told us we're all holy, every one of them. The Lord is with us. Why do you set yourself above God's congregation? Korach was not a Democrat, to put it in today's language. He was a dictator. He wanted power for himself, not for the people. We also know that those protesters who joined him were disingenuous. In other words, they went behind his complaint, but they had their own ideas. Each of them had a reason to feel resentful towards Moses or Aaron, or just resentful that their life wasn't what they wanted it to be. So they turned that into a rebellion. So let's ask ourselves a question which is very pertinent to the era we live in today. Was everything they said to Moses true or false? So hang on, you can't say it was all false. When we hear people talking against their being removed from power, everything they say is not false. For example, surely they told the truth when they said all the congregation are holy, because it's true. God had said to the people beforehand, you are a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. Meaning a kingdom of people in a sense that all the people are priests. And a nation whose citizens are holy. So that was part of their complaint. Was the truth, was it not? Were they not equally right to say God is with us, not only with you? That was the point of making the tabernacle. He made the sanctuary so that he could dwell in the sanctuary and be with them whenever they travel throughout the desert, giving them a sign by night of fire and a sign by day of cloud. So everything, these people with bad motives, but they are still speaking the truth up to this point. So what was wrong then was the remark they added after that to Moses, because so far they've told the truth. And this is it, when they said to Moses, why then do you set yourself above God's congregation? That was the key to Moses, Aaron, and Hashem understanding that these people were leading a revolt against him, not for the sake of heaven, not for the sake of bringing more justice to a people, but actually challenging God and Moses and justice themselves. So, you see, they made one very big mistake. Moses, at that time, represents a new birth of leadership. And may I say, it's a brand new kind of leadership today, which I trust. And forgive me being political, and I might be totally at wrong, but if I cannot give you examples of everyday life around us, what can I do? Then we're just talking about the past. If you look at the leadership in Israel today, and I'm not sure it's yet been established, against the old leadership of Netanyahu and the extreme right wing, it's made up of a whole lot of people. But the chap who had the power to do it did not take the leadership immediately of Israel for himself. Yair Lapid. Instead, he is acting according to this Torah portion. He may not know it. I don't know if he's religious, but he even said to Bennett, a religious leader, very similar, by the way, and people are worried, to Netanyahu, no, you take the first 2 years, I'll take the next. He understood that he stepped back. He put his ego in place. He did not take the first leadership. So far, Baruch Hashem, that's right. I don't want to take sides politically, but we trust that Biden in America is taking that same stance where he listens to everyone. And at the same time, we say, Baruch Hashem, that our country under Cyril Ramaphosa will go the same way. However, no matter who the leadership is, when justice has to be served and accountability has to be called, like Moses asked Hashem to make the miracle and make those accountable, we, the people, have to demand accountability from our leaders so that the unjust must be punished, or we cannot go forward. So Korach and his followers didn't understand this new type of leadership, because before that, you'll remember, if there was a pharaoh, he was appointed and no one could take his place except his son. In every religious tradition, in Islam and even in Hindu, there's hierarchy of levels. And up until the time of Abraham, Moses, etc., the hierarchy was fixed. You could never attain it. It was fixed, and you had absolute power, and you could destroy any of those beneath you. You were not answerable to the masses. In fact, you rather paid homage to the sun god by sacrificing people, or you paid homage to some other god of nature. So we've really began what is known today as the democratic rule in many, many ways. And so let's have a look. Just as the Torah had granted great honor to Moses, at the same time the Torah commands Moses to be humble, not to let his heart, his subconscious mind, and his ego take over. In fact, the Torah tells Moses, and this is so important, and just as the Torah granted him the great honor, it commanded him to be lowly and empty of heart. Now, heart means your subconscious mind that you bring with you from all the things you've ever heard and learned. The heart of the people from Egypt, many of them, as you know, they had to die in the desert. But you and I can be careful of what our heart says. And if you are a leader in your community or in your business, or you have a position on a management committee, as I do as the chair in my management committee, this is what we have to say. My heart is void within me, nor should he, this is to Moses, nor should Moses treat Israel with overbearing haughtiness. As it says, Moses should not consider himself better than his fellows. That is something that is so important. He should be gracious, the leader, and merciful to the small and the great equally, involving himself only in actions that are for the good and welfare of all. He should protect the honor of even the humblest of people. And this is what they are saying, Hashem says. And now I read you King David's words. When he speaks to the people as a community, he should speak gently, as in, listen, my brothers and my people. We have to have a ruler. We have to have someone in charge, all at different levels of society, of religion, of in a business. But we should listen to the people with humility. That was never done before Moses' era. So could we really blame the people who really had a totally different concept of rebellion and leadership and wanted to grab power? So King David's words in Chronicles, if today you will be a servant to the people. So now, there is none greater than Moses, our teacher. We know that. To the Jews, he is the greatest prophet that ever lived. He actually had a conversation with Hashem and saw his back. And yet, this is what Moses said, what are we? Your complaints are not against us. He should bear the nation's difficulties, burdens, complaints, or anger. So, to Moses, he was told, and he fulfilled it, that he should bear the complaints and anger as a nurse carries an infant. That means we have to discuss it with these people who want to overthrow order, who want to create chaos, as we heard last night. Maimonides lists these people who want to overthrow a leader for their own ego so they can take his place, who want to overthrow a government for the wrong reasons. Maimonides says they will never have any share in the world to come. Someone who imposes a rule of fear on the community, not for the sake of heaven, such a person rules over a community by force, so that people are terrified of them and terrified to speak to them. Maimonides adds to this, they are like heathen kings. So he's referring to the way everyone ruled prior to Moses being instructed by Hashem, not only to help create a new nation, but to create a new world, to be a light unto nations, where every human being will be respected and every opinion respected, but respected in a debate for heaven, not in a debate which says, I'm going to finish you off, I'm right and you're wrong. As we know, the famous debate between our two great sages, Hillel and Shammai, they agreed on nothing, but they listened to each other, they compromised a little bit, and then they went along their way. And some people followed Hillel, and some people followed Shammai. And today, we like to follow both, provided both arguments are for the sake of the people. And you know that great story, I've repeated it before, when they called in the great rabbinical tribune to decide who was right, Hillel or Shammai. What did they say? They listened to both sides. Hillel always placed more emphasis on compassion and healing and reaching out to people both in our race and beyond our nation. Shammai placed much more emphasis on keeping strictly halakha, on praying 3 times a day, and yet it has to be a marriage of both, and it has to be a compromise. So these clever rabbis, what did they say? You know something, we've come to a decision. Both are right. And what I'd ask you to do in our debates, ourselves at Temple Israel Hillbrow, in our own management committee and congregation, is to remember to listen to the other, especially when they disagree with you, and for them to listen to you, and to really think of the facts, and then have that great ability, which every great leader has, to say, I'm sorry, I think I've made a mistake. There is also a wonderful story that goes back to Rabbi Gamaliel. He did something very, very bad. He made a decision really based on his emotion and ego of the moment. And when he started to study, and he was very hurt and upset, and he discussed it with some colleagues, he realized he made a mistake. And this great rabbi is known today for being able to go to his congregation, to the other rabbis, and say, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. Now, can we continue and create a path and listen to ideas and compromise? And within that compromise, find a path of justice, a path of goodness. And look how relevant this is in the world today. And we can see it. I can see it playing out in my own management committee and I can see it playing out in the South African Union of Progressive Judaism. I can see it playing out in any organization, be it religious or be it political, watch the people, folks, how they argue. Are they arguing for the sake of heaven? Can they listen to each other? Can they, as our great nation, South Africa, did apologize for the mistakes of the past, admit we were wrong, and under the leadership of a great man, and many don't like me to bring him up, but Mandela and the rest emphasize the path of Judaism more than many Jews I know. They were able, it wasn't perfect, but the people did apologize under the then great chief rabbi who died, who led us, and who was also for a time under Tikkun Olam at Ashul, Cyril Harris. He apologized on behalf of the Jewish people. And he said that included all Jews, even those who did not believe or practice his stream. And I think this is so important. And just to show you a non-religious aspect, C.J. Lewis, you remember C.J. Lewis, that great author? He said, humility, Moses was humble. We've got to have humility, but that does not mean thinking less of yourself. Moses didn't think less of himself. It was thinking of yourself less. Isn't that brilliant? So it's not that the fact that you must lose confidence in yourself, in your leadership, Melvin, of the people that you love, in your leadership, Harold, of so many people who have great artistic ability like you. And all of you, I can say, Arthur, Herman, Pearl, all of us here, Lawrence, Kevin, we all are leaders in different ways. Lawrence, you bring so much comfort to people suffering around you. And so each of us can listen to what they say and yet still gently lead them to have faith in the goodness of God, in the goodness of creation, understanding our own culpability in this pandemic, holding leadership accountable and going forward. So maybe it's thinking less, it's not thinking less of ourselves, it's thinking less about ourselves. And that is a lesson that the great rabbis, and I've gone to many sources, all imparted to their people over the generations. Judaism is a protest against hierarchy, against dictatorship. Every human being, not just a king or a chair or a leader or a big CEO, is made in the image and likeness of God. No one is entitled to rule over another human being unless they agree to it. And when the people agree to a false leader who wants nothing for the rest of the country but himself and his team and his people, that is false, and they must perish, and ultimately they will. So there is still a need of leadership in the world. We have to have a leader. What would an orchestra be without a conductor? It would lapse into a discord. What would a rugby, a cricket, or a soccer team be without a leader, in spite of brilliant players? However, if there was no leadership, everyone would do what they want and the world would be destroyed. So it takes a great leader, be it a president, a prime minister, a rabbi, a CEO, a chair of a congregation, to do the right thing. And it really isn't easy. So let me just conclude then with these words. In an argument for the sake of truth, both sides win, for each is willing to listen to the views of its opponents and therefore enlarge. Just apply that to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I mentioned that because it's so close to home, but there are hundreds of conflicts now worldwide. If only The new leadership, this new era, will listen to life, to what is good, to make compromise and stand united against hatred and terror. Wouldn't it be an incredible, incredible miracle? But in today, we know it's you and I and our mouths and our feet and our voting and our thoughts and what we say and being together in a congregation like today. It is us who've got to create those miracles. We know that after Moses and the prophets and the judges, that it's up to us. God has given us the ability to create the miracles. Each of the two different sides of an argument, if they are willing to say, yes, I was wrong, where they really feel it, there is no triumphalism in victory. In other words, if you compromise and if both sides listen, or all the people in a committee listen, be it a committee in any sphere from business to politics, then you find the right path between you. That then means you've argued for heaven. The story of Korach remains the classic example of how argument can be dishonored. It is one of Judaism's noblest ideal. Now listen to this: conflict resolution by honoring both sides and employing humility in the pursuit of truth. May Hashem guide not only us, but the thousands and thousands and thousands of Shabbat services being held as we are by Zoom throughout the world, and all the Shabbat services that are being held in a home on their own, as they do not use anything electric, and all the people holding their religious services, no matter what religion, may they be guided to follow the path of finding peace and resolution of conflict through following the path of Hashem. Shabbat Shalom. Back to you, Mary.